Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of game review, I guess. I had this idea for a channel a while back, and I like the game Mario Maker. You may have heard of it, and there's this game you may have heard of called Mario Maker, and I really like that game, so I wanted to make really good levels for it. But I realized that to do that, I would have to go back and look through every Mario game and see how those levels were designed so that I could design levels in the same way. So that's exactly what I was going to do. Of course, of course, Mario Maker has been out for a few years now, and of course, I've already made dozens of of course, I've already made dozens of Mario Maker levels. So I kind of got old of the game and didn't want to make. Of course, I've made dozens of Mario Maker levels and no longer wanted to make any more, at least not at the moment. So I didn't want to go out exploring Mario games and dissecting them and not make any games. Of course, Mario Maker is now a few years. Of course, Mario Maker is not a new game anymore, and I don't want to play it anymore. Of course, Mario Maker is a couple years old, and I don't want to make any more levels in it because I've already made enough. Of course, I've already spent hours in Mario Maker 2, and I don't really want to play anymore because I'm running out of love. Of course, I've already spent hours in Mario Maker and just don't feel the need to play any more of the game. But I still want to dissect Mario games. But instead of dissecting the level design, I wanted to dissect But instead of dissecting the level design, I wanted to. But instead of dissecting the level design, I wanted to. But instead of dissecting the level design, I wanted to dissect the entire game. So this is episode 1, where I'm dissecting every single Mario game that I have access to. Of course, when I run out of Mario games, I could dissect other franchises. I've already started planning out. Of course, when I run out of Mario games, I'll probably dissect other games. Of course, when I run out of Mario games, I'll probably start dissecting other games like Kirby or Sonic the Hedgehog. But we haven't gotten that far yet, because today we're starting off with Mario Bros. 1 for the. But we have not gotten that far, so let's just start at the beginning. Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Now I have 10 things to critique. I forgot the 10 things. Now I have 10 things to critique. Graphics, graphics, control, graphics, controls, level design, level layout, variety, power-ups, enemies, boss fights, secrets, and of course extra. So first things first. So first things So first things first. So first thing so first things first, graphics. Now it might seem a little weird to critique the graphics of a nearly 40-year-old game, but I think it's still important. Because there are certain games where the graphics still hold up, like Sonic the Hedgehog. I think that game looks amazing. Mario is not one of them. Super Mario Brothers doesn't look that good at all. It was great for the time. Like, I can acknowledge that it was pretty good for the time. You can tell what everything is, and it looks pretty decent. But it's just not very good. But it's just not very good by today's standard, even by really bad today's standard. But it's just not good for today's standard. But obviously, I can't judge something based on. But obviously, I can't judge. But obviously, I can't judge something before being in the past. So it was pretty good at the time. But obviously, I can't judge things for the hardware they were on. But obviously, I can't judge the game because it was on bad hardware. That's not the game's fault. But be, but even though it was on bad hardware, it still looked pretty good. Mario looks fantastic. Mario looks exactly what you would expect. Looks like a guy with red clothes, overalls, and mustache. Mario looks fantastic. You know exactly what he is and what he looks like. He's got a big nose, a mustache, red hat, overalls. Makes sense. Well, actually, he doesn't have a red hat, but like, it's yeah. Then there's mushrooms that look like mushrooms, and the Goombas, which look like bad mushrooms. The Koopas, which look like turtles. Bowser looks like a big turtle. Everything just looks like exactly what you would expect them to look like. And that might sound bad, like it's just doing what you'd expect, but it's pretty good. Now, that might seem bad that it's doing what you expect, but that's a good thing. It makes it look like what it's supposed to. If you try making pixel art, you know how hard it is to make something look like it's real. And it's surprising they were able to make things look like they were supposed to in such little space. Anyone that's ever tried pixel art knows that it's kind of difficult to get proportions right and make things look decent. So, well, good job to them. But graphics is only the first thing. What about the other 9? Ooh! I wasn't supposed to happen. Next up, controls. I don't think this game controls well at all. The game is all about jumping, but the game is all about jumping. The game is all about jumping. That is its defining feature. Everything requires you to jump. Killing enemies, you jump. Everything requires you to jump. How do you kill enemies? You jump on them. How do you move? You jump. How do you end the level? You jump to the flag. It all lines up with jumping. And that's not very good when the jump doesn't feel very well. And that's really annoying when the jump isn't that good. You only have the jump. The jump just like... Now, it's not as bad as some games. The original Mario Bros. Has an awful jump. Now, it's not as bad as some games. The original Mario Bros. Has a terrible jump. And this game is way better than that, but better than trash isn't gold. But being better than garbage isn't really a good thing. When you jump, you're jumping in a you're jumping in that direction with that amount of speed. You can't really change that at all. If you jump if you jump if you jump while stationary, you can't go forward. If you jump while stationary, you basically can't go forward. Like, technically you can a little bit, but it's just not that much. You have very little air control, and when you're having to do tight you have very little air control, and when you're having to jump off of very little platforms onto other little platforms, it's not the best thing in the world. The run feels nice though, I guess. But there's not a lot you can really control, so let's just move on. Next up is level design, and I think this game is also pretty bad at that. There are some... Let me start over. There are some This game ranges from decent levels to awful levels. Take 2-3 for example. It is just a bridge that... Take 2-3 for example. It's a bridge where cheap jump at you. This is not fun. This is not fun. It's not fun. Then you have basically the exact same level for 7-3. Like, that, it's the same idea. It's what? Oh, and then you have the maze levels like 4-4. Why? It's just, you choose the right path. If you get it wrong, you start over. You gotta do it again. That's not fun either. And there's multiple of them. 7-4 is another one, and I hated it so much, this is when I stopped playing the game. I replayed the game for this video and stopped at 7-4 because I didn't want to find the right path. It's just like, how did they think this was fun? But there aren't only bad levels, there are some decent ones. One that people still talk about today is 1-1. And 1-1 is pretty good. It teaches you about Goombas really well, it teaches you about question marks really well, it teaches you about Goombas and question blocks, it has secrets, it's pretty decent. But it's still not that fun. At the very beginning of the level, you see Goombas. At the very beginning of the level, you see a Goomba and a question block. That's all good. Good part. At the beginning of the level, you have a pretty decent section. At the beginning, the level starts pretty fine. There's a flat area, and then you have a question block and Goomba. It's all good. But then you have a pipe. Pipes are fine, but then you have a pipe. You jump over that pipe, there's a Goomba. There's another pipe. You jump over that pipe, there's some Goomba. But then you get to the but then it goes downhill. You have a pipe, you jump over the pipe. There's another pipe, you jump over the pipe. There's another pipe, you jump over the pipe. There's another pipe, guess what? You jump over the pipe. Like, that's not level design, that's just repetition. In a very, very boring way. Now, I do like the secret. Now, I do like that there's a hidden secret at the end. Now, I do like that you can go down the last pipe, but this isn't the secret section. We'll get to that later. So even when you have the best of the best levels, there's still not very good levels. I just don't think this level design holds up at all. I just don't think this level design holds up at all. Next, but what about the level layouts, and what do I mean by this? You might ask, now you might be confused because isn't the level layout the way the level is laid out, which is just the level design? Well, that's not what I mean. When I mean level layout, I don't mean how each level is laid out, but instead how the levels are laid together. For instance, in future Mario games, the world will share a theme, and that theme will get harder throughout. For instance, in future Mario games, each world will share a theme, and the levels within that world will get presented. For instance, in future Mario games, each world has a theme, and inside of each world, the levels from start to end and inside of that world, the levels inside that world go from easy to hard, and then you beat the level and move on to the next theme. In the original Mario Bros, that doesn't happen. There are no themes. You do have, of course, there are some repetition, like the final level of each. You do have some repetition, like world. You do have some repetition, like the last level in every world is a Bowser You do have some repetition, like the last world, and you do have some repetition, like the last level in every world is a castle level. You do have some repetition, like the last level in every world is a castle level, but that's about it. There isn't a water world or an underground world. It's just There isn't a water world or an underground world or a sky world. Even though those themes exist, they don't have their own world. And this, and I don't, I'm not the biggest fan of this because I do like that you get new. I'm not the biggest fan of this because I do like that every level is unique and you don't have to. I'm not the biggest fan of this. It is pretty cool because each level after. I'm not the biggest fan of this because on one hand, it is nice that every level is different and it's not like a whole string of levels that are similar back to back to back. Because every level, because no levels will follow a similar level. It goes one level to the next level to the next level, every single one having a different style. But on the other end of things, it means it's all very unorganized. The levels are organized based on difficulty. The levels are technically organized on difficulty. The later you go the later in the game, the harder the difficulty. And it is pretty fine. I don't find any huge spikes in difficulty. And it is pretty fine. There aren't any major difficulty spikes. So I think they did a pretty good job with that. But I just wish that each level but I just wish that each world felt distinct. But I just wish each world and each level felt distinct. Showing you a screenshot from a level, you can't really guess what level it is or even what world. If I just showed you a screenshot of a level, you'd have no idea what world it is or even what. If I just showed you a screenshot from a level, you'd have no idea what level it is or even what world it's from. So I just wish there was a little bit more character added to each level. So I just wish there was a little bit more character given. So I just wish it was a little better at that. So I just wish it looked a little better. So I just wish it organized everything a little bit better. But speaking of level variety, there are 8 different. But speaking of different levels, there are arguably 8 different kinds: ground, underground, sky, castle, night, water, night sky, and arguably snow sky. There might be some that I missed, but these are all the ones that I counted. Now a lot of them are just straight level. Now a lot of them are just different textures. Night sky, day sky, and snow sky are just the same level but different colors. But a lot of them are pretty unique. For instance, the castle is the only one that. For instance, the castle levels are the only levels to have Potaboot. For instance, the castles are the only levels to have fireballs and For instance, the castle levels are the only ones that have fireballs and fire snakes. I forget, what are they called? I cannot remember what they're called. It's the spinning fire thing. I'll remember it. The name will come to me. And for instance, the castle levels are the only ones with fireballs. The underground levels have a ceiling. The underground levels have a ceiling where the ground levels do not. The sky levels have no ground. The sky levels have barely any ground, and the castle levels are the only ones that feature fireballs. So there is some distinction, which is really nice. But there's also the water level. Now I do like that the water levels change the entire control system. I don't know why so many games felt the need to add a water level when they're just like most. I don't know why so many games felt the need to add water levels, even though they're not good. Like I said earlier, Mario was about jumping. Like I said before, Mario is about jumping. So trying to just take the jump away feels really bad. I just like the water levels are the water levels are never fun. The water levels are never fun. The water levels are never fun. They're a nice addition just to add variety, but there isn't. The water levels are not very fun. It's nice that they're an addition just to add variety, but I don't like them at all. The water levels are not fun at all. The water levels are not very fun. They do change up the level design, but not in a good way. But what about enemy variety? There are quite a lot of enemies. So, so there is a small variety in levels where different. So there is a small variety in levels, different levels being designed differently, and I do like that. Although the biggest variety isn't very good, although the biggest variety is not very good, the other varieties are pretty good. Of course, you have nothing major. Of course, you have nothing major, but it's enough to stay interesting. Next thing I want to talk about is power-ups. There are only 3 power-ups in Mario Bros. There are only 3 power-ups in Super Mario Bros. The mushroom, the fire flower, and the star. The mushroom is ingeniously designed. The mushroom is one of the most ingenious power-ups in the world. That might sound like I'm over-exaggerating, but I mean that. It allows Mario to take an extra hit, which isn't anything new, but the way it shows you that is brilliant. Instead of just having hearts in the corner, that getting the power up just adds an extra heart. Instead of having some health bar in the instead of having a health bar in the corner where picking up a mushroom just refills it. Instead of having a health bar in the corner where picking up a mushroom, instead of having a health bar in the corner where picking up a mushroom just Instead of having a health bar instead of having some kind of health bar in the corner and picking up a mushroom just refills it. Instead of doing something like having a health bar in the corner where picking up a mushroom just refills it, instead they change Mario's height. This means 2 things. One, it makes sense why Mario can do certain things big that he can't do small. It makes sense why Mario gains abilities. In The Legend of Zelda, when Link has full health, he can shoot a beam out of his sword. That doesn't make any sense. But Mario being able to break bricks when he's bigger makes perfect sense. It also means that no matter who's playing the game, you can just glance at the TV and tell how much health Mario has. You can tell exactly how many times he can get hit, and you can instantly tell how many times he can get hit, and you can instantly tell how much health Mario has with a glance extremely quickly. It also means that you can just tell Mario's health at all times. With games like Mega Man, you're focusing on Mega Man himself while playing the game, but you have to glance up at the health bar whenever you want to know how much health you have. With Mario, it's all in the same place. With Mario, it's at the same place. You can just look at Mario while playing and look at Mario while reading health. It's perfect. I just think it's the most ingenious thing in the world. Then you have the Fire Flower, which is also brilliant. It seems like it goes against the main gimmick of the game, which is jumping, but it doesn't. You see, being able to fire at enemies, being able to shoot at enemies, being able to shoot at enemies means that you don't have to jump on them, which sounds like it's counterintuitive to the main idea, but it's not. Because the way the fireballs bounce means you have to. Now, being able to shoot enemies sounds counterproductive. Now, being able to shoot enemies sounds counterproductive to the main idea of the game, which is jumping. But it's not. You see, to shoot an enemy, you have to jump. The fireballs don't shoot straight. The fireballs don't shoot straight. They jump. The fireballs don't shoot straight. They jump from the left to the right. The fireballs don't shoot straight. They hop. Which means if an enemy is right in front of you, which means the best way to hit an enemy is to jump and throw a fireball directly down at them. Because you can't shoot straight in front of you. Now with most enemies, that's kind of point. Now with most enemies, they're just big enough to be hit. But of course, with some enemies, it's just because the fireflower is designed that you attack enemies with the high ground, and with a character whose entire ability is to jump higher than the opponent. Getting the high ground is exactly what you can do. And with a character whose entire purpose is to jump higher than the opponent, getting the high ground is all you can do. So the Fireflower, I think, is also ingeniously designed. And then there's the star. Now the star isn't as ingenious because just the star isn't as ingenious. The star isn't as ingenious. It's just common sense. Abilities like this have appeared in loads of games, including Pac-Man. Abilities like this have appeared in loads of games like Pac-Man. Abilities like this have appeared in games throughout the years. Most abilities like this power-ups like this have shown up throughout the years in lots of different notable games. For instance, Pac-Man. But I think that it does a couple things really smart. One, it adds music, which makes you more pumped to go. It adds exciting music. It adds more exciting music. It adds special music. Which makes you more excited to go run into as many enemies as you possibly can as quick as you can. And 2, it changes Mario's color. Now, it doesn't just change its color with the Fireflower, it flashes its color, making it even more exciting. Having the star makes you super excited to just go as. Having the star just makes you super excited to go kill as much as you possibly can. Which means even though the ability isn't perfect, which means even though the ability isn't that special, the way they put it in the game is pretty cool. Which means even though the ability itself, even though the power-up itself isn't in. Which means the power-up itself isn't that special, the way they implemented it is. But next, I want to talk about enemies. But what about enemies? Now, I've already talked about enemies a bit before. Now, I've already kind of talked about them. Most enemies are designed where you jump on top of them to kill them. And that just fits in perfectly with the entire idea of the game. However, I also just like the variety in all the enemies. You have some enemies you can jump on, some enemies Some enemies you can jump on, some you can't. Some enemies you can jump on, some you can't, some are harder to jump on, and some of them have special abilities if you jump on them. I think they're designed pretty well. And one of the most notorious and one of the most infamous Mario villains is the Hammer Bro, which is also geniusly designed. To simplify it, he throws his hammer in an arc, you jump in an arc, which means to simplify why it's ingenious, he throws his hammer in an arc, you jump in an arc. That means to jump on his head, that means if you're trying to jump on his head, you're in the perfect line of sight for his hammer, which means it's extremely difficult to attack him. Arlo made a video about this a while back. Dissecting the Hammer Bro, so go watch that if you want to learn more. Arlo made a video about dissecting the Hammer Bro a while back, so go watch that if you want to learn more. It's also neat that they die immediately by firepower. These guys have a great these guys create a great incentive. These guys create a great incentive to keep your fire flower as long as you can, because certain enemies are extremely difficult to kill with a jump. Because certain enemies like the Hammer Bro are difficult to kill with a jump, you can kill them extremely easily with a fire flower. But what about bosses? But that's just the basic enemies. What about the more complex ones, like boss fights? Now, of course, this being an old game, they couldn't really make a lot of complex boss fights. Which means they only made one boss fight. That's repeated 8 times. Of course, there is a difference in the environment, but not really the boss fight itself. The boss fight, however, is not that great. You just dodge his attacks, jump over him, hit the axe, and you win. It's not that geniusly designed. It's not that good of a boss fight. At best, it's annoying. At best, it gets more annoying as the game progresses, but it doesn't really get that much harder. Because if you just bring a mushroom with you, you can just dodge the fight. Because if you just bring a mushroom with you can just immediately defeat him without having to dodge any of his attacks. So it's not that good, but it works for what it's supposed to be. So it's not that good, but it works. So it's not that good of a boss fight, and I'm glad that the boss fights got better so it's not really a good boss fight at all, but it serves its purpose. But what about secrets? I think most Mario games have handled secrets in a really good way. Mario 1 is no exception. Super Mario Bros. Is no exception. First of all, there are multiple varieties of secrets. There are hidden warp zone. There there are hidden zones which can, what are they called? There are hidden warp zones which take you to different worlds, which is insanely awesome. There are just hidden pipes that take you to secret rooms with either there are just hidden rooms and pipes that just there are just hidden rooms and pipes with filled there are just hidden rooms and pipes filled with coins. And also there's the occasional hidden block. Also there's hidden power-ups. Also there are power-ups occasionally hidden inside of block. Also, there are power-ups occasionally hidden inside of brick blocks, which are kind of hidden because you don't know where they are, but also not hidden because you know exactly where the brick is. It's just you don't know if it has anything inside. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I almost forgot the one up. I should have probably mentioned this in the power-up section, but I mean it's not really a power-up. It's more of a collectible. I think the one-ups are designed pretty yeah, this game has pretty yeah, Mario. Oh, also, I really like the Oh, and also there's also, besides the secrets you can interact with, there are some that are just Easter eggs. For instance, I really like that if you kill Bowser with a fire flower in any world except the last one, he ends up not being Bowser. I think this is an ingenious way of storytelling without story. This is an ingenious way of storytelling without telling. I just think that's an awesome touch that they didn't have to add, but they did, and it's amazing. Small touches like this make good games great games. Not that this is a great game or anything, but you know. If I did have to nitpick one thing, it's that most secrets aren't very well choreographed. If I did have to nitpick one thing, it's that most secrets are too hidden. A good secret is a secret that most people won't find, but if you have a keen eye, you will. But most secrets inside of Super Mario Bros. Are just impossible to find. The only way you'd find them is either just by pure luck or you Googled it. Future Mario games would get better at hiding secrets. Future Mario games would be able to. But since this was an NES game, but older games were designed very differently than modern games, because most people didn't have enough money. Because obviously there wasn't that many good games. Most people had to spend weeks and out. Because obviously there wasn't that many good games. Most kids would just replay the same game over and over again. This meant it was really nice to hide secrets everywhere so that no matter how many times you play it, you're still discovering new things. But unfortunately in the modern era, where the game is popular as Super Mario Bros., most people know the most basic secrets. Most people know the most common secrets. But now time for extra. But now time for extra. I couldn't really think of too much extra to add, but I couldn't think of too much extra to add because the game's not that complicated, but I might as well go over some. But I might as well go over something. I like the power up. I like the cool 1-up glitch. I like the cool 1-up Easter egg, where if you jump off 8 enemies in succession, you get a 1-up. Of course, it's insanely difficult to do unless you use the shell against... Of course, it's insanely difficult to do in normal gameplay unless you use some kind of glitch Easter egg. I don't know what this is. But it is a nice touch. But anyway, I think that's as much as I can possibly say about this game. It's not that complex. I just apparently had a lot to say. Oh, also, I think it'd be pretty nice. Oh, also, I think it'd be pretty nice if I ranked every game I reviewed. So just add this to the list since there's nothing to compare it to. So at the moment, I guess this is my favorite game, apparently. But it won't stay that way for long. But of course it won't stay that way for long. I think this game was great for the time, and there's a lot of things that you can look back on and say, I think this game was great for the time, and I think it did a lot of things ingeniously, but it also did a lot of things really badly. The power-ups were ingeniously designed. The power-ups were ingenious. The enemies were pretty... The power-ups were ingenious. The power-ups were ingenious. The power-ups were ingenious. The way the jumping mechanic... The power-ups are ingenious. The graphics are pretty good for the time. The graphics are pretty good for the system. No, cut that out. The enemies, I think, were mostly well designed. It was neat. There was multiple level variety. I guess. There's not a lot that's perfect. There's not that much that's good with this game. The levels are pretty uninspired and don't really change. The levels are pretty uninspired and you get really bored of the game really quickly. Mario's jump is extremely annoying to control, especially compared to some of the more modern games. Bowser as the boss is just... The Bowser boss fight is just not good at all. And a lot of the secrets were very, very poorly hidden. The game's not perfect, but it was pretty good for the time. And of course, because it led to such an amazing series, loads of people want to look back and talk about this game. But I think we need to remember how good it was. So I think we do need to compare it to how... But I do think we should compare it around... But I do think we should keep in mind exactly when this game was made, because it's not modern. But yeah. We should still keep in mind... We should still say that it's... We should also talk about if it's good compared to some of the more recent games. We should also compare it to some of the more recent games. Because even though a game was good for the time, we're not living in that time. We're living now. Why would I care how good a game was if I'm living now? I should care how a game is now. So of course, you should, I don't really know how to end this video. If you haven't played Mario Brothers, I guess that's as much as I got to say. I don't know how to end this video. If you haven't played Super Mario Brothers, then you're lying. but no, seriously. But no, seriously. Thank you for watching. Uh, I don't know how many of these videos I'll make, but I don't really know what else to say. So signing off from Wyatt, I guess. I don't really know what else to say. So signing off from Wyatt. Adios. Goodbye. Man, I need to come up with some kind of outro. Like, what's up? Man, I need to come up with some kind of outro. Like, hey, what up, dog? This no, that's an intro. Like, adios to me. No, I don't want to be Mexican. What? Maybe I should go to my face when I sign off. Maybe I should go to my face when I sign off. Bye. What am I talking about? That's a terrible idea. I'll just like let the music fade out and that'll be it. Now, I have 10 categories in which I would like to critique.